office that I'm in now. And throughout my time of knocking on all those doors, the vast majority of people told me their number one concern was lowering the cost of their car insurance. And I actually never had anybody tell me they thought they were not paying enough. So I started looking into it, and Lana Theis and I got to work on this issue since we were in office. And she's got a comprehensive plan that is going to save us a ton of money. But it's rather lengthy, it's 78 pages long, so it's going to take a little bit, but that's what we're here today, to discuss that plan and answer any questions that you may have about it. And with that, Chairman of the Insurance Committee, Representative
That's why I can't.
Thank you, Representative LaFave. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I appreciate you being here. The weather is incredible, and every time it's like this, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, this is probably the last amazing day until April. So thank you for sharing it with me. I'm grateful. I do chair the insurance committee. My degree's in biology and chemistry, so I spent a lot of time in the medical arena. I was pre-med, and I was very interested in, actually I was planning on going into pediatric oncology. And in the process, while I was waiting to finish my MCATs, I started working for health insurance companies. And when I moved to Michigan, moved back to Michigan, I expected my auto insurance to go down, and then I found out this really odd thing. My health insurance, I had to pay for unlimited lifetime medical benefits through my auto insurance, and that made absolutely no sense to me. So when I realized that that was one of the major cost drivers for why our auto insurance is incredibly high, I wasn't surprised by that. So these were some of the headlines back in the 70s when we were trying to fix what they saw as a huge problem. Down here, it's kind of hard to read with the lights on as high as they are, but it says, one of the typical editorials of the day, 17% of all lawsuits are auto accidents, clogging up the courts. Under no fault, there will be no lengthy negotiations or court cases to find fault. Lawsuits will be limited to the most severe accidents. 17% of the court system. Right now, it's closer to 42% of all court cases, civic court cases, in civil court cases in Michigan are auto no fault related. So it was clogging up the court at 17%, and now we're way above that, and it's going up. Back in '97, the average cost for auto no fault, the average car was paying $716. 10 years later, it had gone up by a couple of $100, 30%. 10 years later, it's gone up by 230%. It's now $2,394 on average. So we are number one for all the wrong reasons. This is one of the things as a legislature you don't want to say we're number one in. But we have the highest auto insurance in the nation. And one of the things you do when you're looking at your process is you look to see what your neighbors are doing. So first we look nationwide. Oh, nationwide the average is $1,325 a year, so we're paying twice that. Well, what are our next door neighbors doing? Ohio's paying about $900 a year, so we're 3 times more. Now granted, their process is very different than ours, therefore we're not. But I don't have a whole bunch of people in Ohio wishing that they had Michigan insurance. So we're doing it wrong. We're trying to get that fixed. That's where our focus is. So we looked what makes up the cost of the average bill. The average bill is about 7% bodily injury and tort, about 20% theft comprehensive, a little over 30% collision. The personal injury protection in the MCCA, which is a part of the personal injury protection, makes up almost half your bill at 42%. So why are they so high? We were talking about this earlier. Unlimited lifetime medical benefits is the primary driver. We're the only state in the country that mandates that people have to purchase that. Uninsured drivers and fraud, because our cost is so incredibly high, there are an awful lot of people who are choosing to drive without it. Now that is illegal, but for some it's not a choice. If you have to choose between your rent and your auto insurance, you're probably picking rent. If you have to choose for food for your kids and auto insurance, you're probably choosing the food for your kids, and that's the situation we put an awful lot of people in. So we're making criminals out of folks that really would like to comply with the law, many of them. And then the medical fees. Auto insurance pays orders of magnitude higher for exactly the same procedure in exactly the same location with exactly the same provider as any other type of insurance that we have out there right now. Megan? It's not going anywhere. So, by way of reference, in Detroit, they did the mayor was telling us about this. There was an MRI. Under Medicare, the same machine, same location, same provider is $500. Under auto no fault, it's $5,300.
Try it again.
10 times more expensive for no fault to provide the care. And that's not better or worse care. It's exactly the same care, just 10 times more expensive.
Try it again.
So we talked about this. In Michigan, you are required to purchase unlimited lifetime medical benefits, whether or not you think your current insurance is sufficient. By comparison, New York requires a $50,000 personal injury protection coverage. Florida just moved to $10,000. No other state is moving our direction trying to go to unlimited. For seniors, and this is something that most people don't think about, my mom, I use my mom as an example, she's in her 70s. She worked her tail off so that she would have lifetime medical benefits when she retired, and she's got those now. But we're requiring that she spend some money from her fixed income, a significant amount of money, to purchase yet another health insurance that she really doesn't think she needs. She would prefer to be able to spend the money on something else. Megan, I think it's not going to work. There we go. So the costs are going up astronomically, and they're going to continue to go up, because what's happening is the high cost of auto insurance is causing people not to purchase it. So there are more uninsured drivers. So you and I, who pay for our insurance, end up paying money because of those uninsured drivers, and the cost continues to escalate. This is one of the reasons why I say that the system is absolutely unsustainable. Over 20% of drivers statewide, and over 50% of drivers in the Detroit area are driving uninsured. And we think there are 3 reasons for that. We think there are the folks who wouldn't buy it regardless. That's about a third of them. There are the folks who would buy it if it were affordable, but simply can't afford it. And then there are a group of folks that have let their insurance lapse until they get their next paycheck or something where they can get back to where they can afford it. And those last 2 columns we think are about the other 2/3. So we're requiring that every driver pay for unlimited lifetime medical benefits, except for the ones that are uninsured are receiving that benefit. Unless you're a driver driving the uninsured car that you own, you're receiving unlimited lifetime medical benefits right now in an accident. Innocent third parties get it, bicyclists, people who interact with the insurance, with the car, are still receiving it even though they've never paid into the system. So Detroit Free Press did a wonderful article that I found absolutely fascinating. They were coming up with the reason why these costs are so high. They said there's a surge in lawsuits. In Wayne County alone, they're saying that the lawsuits have quadrupled just since 2004. They're talking about the high medical bills, which is what I was just telling you about with respect to the MRI. But it gets even worse. What's happening in some of these areas is we have attorneys who are calling to find out when somebody's gotten into an accident. They'll call the police station. Then when that person's gotten into an accident, even if they said they didn't have any injuries, they'll get a phone call and say, well, we want to check you out, make sure that you're okay. We're going to send you a vehicle, and we're going to have you x-rayed. So they'll send a transportation vehicle that charges $100 to $200 to drive the 2 miles to the building that houses the MRI. That building is owned by the attorney. The radiologist is paying rent to that attorney. So the attorney has a fiduciary interest in what's going on. And then what they do is the attorney turns around and sues the insurance company for non-payment of bills before the insurance company was ever billed, and now the attorney, not only does he get all that other money, but he gets a third of everything that happens moving forward. The personal care, attendant care is a major part of the MCCA, which is the reinsurance mechanism. It's where people go who are the most desperately injured. Attendant care is often something that attorneys are suing for, and this is kind of their multi-level marketing plan. So say you're getting $10 an hour as an attendant, and the attorney says you should be able to get 16, so he goes to court and sues for 16. Well, he gets a third of that. So $2 for the life of that individual is going to go to the attorney every hour that that attendant works. The attorney is getting $2 of that. We don't think that's right either. So we already talked about the solicitation of victims. The fraud watchdog. We need to make sure that there's a lot more fraud oversight. When you write a blank check, all of us know that that actually tends to drive fraud. So what does this look like, the difference in cost? Medicare, this is an average cost of an MRI for a lower back in Detroit. Medicare is just shy of $500. Private insurance is just shy of $800. Auto insurance would pay $200 for that exact same procedure at the same place. The average cost of shoulder surgery in Grand Rapids and Lansing, Medicare, $650. Private insurance, about $1,000. Auto insurance in Grand Rapids, $3,000, and Lansing, $2,200. So insurance is paying more for the same thing. It doesn't make sense for us to choose to continue to do it this way. So the states with the highest mandate to buy car insurance, personal injury protection, Michigan is the only one that's unlimited. There's nothing else like it. New Jersey is $250,000. They mandate that for certain injuries. The next highest state that mandates for all injuries is New York at $50,000. And you quickly, as you travel down the list, you'll see you get to about $3,000 pretty quickly. 26 states don't require that we purchase any personal injury protection at all. We are definitively an outlier. What this frame is set up to tell you is to show you the increase of the personal injury protection portion of your bill over time. In 1990, it only took up about 26% of your bill on average. By 2016, it's taking up 44% of your bill. And the costs are going up. They show no opportunity to go down. But you compare that to nationwide, the PIP portion has only increased by 3%. Michigan is unique. And I would argue we're doing it wrong. The court cases are another one of the things that are driving it. We talked about the increase in court cases and how in the beginning it was 17%, and now it's a lot higher than that. In Wayne County in 2010, the court cases, the auto no-fault cases made up 39% of the docket. It's gone up to 57% by 2016. Macomb County, 26% in 2010, gone up to 53% in 2016. Oakland County, 13% in 2010, it's now gone up to 33% in 2016, and both of those counties are just trending upward. There is no reduction in sight. So we're the highest in the nation. We're at $2,394, so almost $2,400. National average is $1,300. The fastest growing premiums are not Detroit. It's Oakland, Macomb, and Kent counties. We talked about the seniors. So what we're doing is we're requiring of our seniors who are on a fixed income to pay $600 to $1,000 more than they necessarily have to pay for duplicate coverage that they may or may not want. So what we're arguing here is not that we believe that that should be taken away from them, but that we believe they should have a choice as to whether or not that's where they're going to spend the money. We're the only state in the nation where seniors are double or triple taxed. I consider it a tax when we mandate that somebody has to pay for something that they may not want. So what my bill does, we're allowing drivers a choice. We're offering 3 different levels. We're keeping the unlimited. So if you want to continue to have unlimited lifetime medical coverage, that option is absolutely still available for you. But if you don't want to do that, if you think that's too much, if you don't see the value in it, and you'd rather spend your money someplace else, we have 2 other options. There's a $250,000 level, and there's a $500,000 level. I think it's important that people are given the choice in this. We have an additional choice for seniors. They have an option to show us that they have lifetime medical coverage already, and they can opt out of the medical portion altogether. Fraud, we made sure that we were addressing the fraud issues. Attorneys' fees, there's limits as to what they can charge and how long they can charge. We hold them accountable for unfounded lawsuits. We eliminate attorney conflicts of interest, so now they can't own that transportation company, they can't own the building that the MRI is in, and then still turn around and receive money for suing on behalf of this client. We're regulating medical fees. We're setting up a fee schedule. It is extremely important that what we're saying is, if you're going to charge this to everybody else, this is what you ought to be charging the insurance companies. You really shouldn't be charging them more. There's no reason. This addresses concerns about the MCCA. I know quite a few folks in this room have insurance backgrounds, so you understand what that is. That's the area of money that we've heard an awful lot about recently that people think ought to be used for other things. Well, we made those promises to people who are already catastrophically injured, and we want to make sure that that money is reserved for paying those bills, but we also want to make sure that it's being held accountable and so that people are aware of what's in there and where the money's going. Premium rate reduction, what we're offering with that $250,000 level is we're requiring that the insurance company reduce the PIP portion, so the health portion of their auto insurance, that portion has to be reduced by 40% when people, by an average of 40% when people choose that amount. And we're putting that limit in there for 5 years. What DIFS, the Department of Insurance and Financial Services, told us they expect to have happen is once this goes into effect, they expect that we'll even have more competition coming into Michigan, because right now it's a very difficult place to sell this particular product. So they think we'll have more competition and the rates will go down even more. So what's going to happen? We're going to allow our drivers savings of up to 50% when they're choosing something other than the unlimited coverage. As the price of insurance goes down, more people are going to choose to purchase insurance, which is going to continue to let it go down, because we're not going to have as many uninsured drivers. And then the seniors are going to be able to spend their money where they want. If they want unlimited, they still can do it, but if they want to choose something else, they have that option as well. Megan? It's ignoring me again. So what we did is we just pulled bills from this is generally my area. There's one of them is up north. And these are bills that they have collision coverage as well. So as a percentage of the bill, it's less of a reduction than if someone just had PO and PD. But for someone who lives in Weberville, they have 2 vehicles, 2 drivers on their policy. This is a family of 4. They're going to save $458. Family number 2, Bear Lake, they have 7 vehicles, 2 that they put in storage for the winter. They're going to save $850. Another family living in Howell, 4 vehicles, just 2 drivers on their policy though. They're going to save almost $700. These are very real savings for most families in this state. I've heard other people say that they didn't think that was a ton of money. I can tell you that's a ton of money for my family. And again, if they don't think that the savings are worth it, they can still choose the unlimited coverage. So I've got some information about the MCCA. If you're interested in that, we can go through that later. But I wanted to get to my contact information. There we go. So my ask of you today is that you contact my office and let us know that you're interested in change and interested in getting more information. Then I would ask you to contact your legislator. Bo has been absolutely amazing on this issue. But when we go to caucus and we go to have discussions with our other legislators, it is so beneficial to be able to say, you know what, we're receiving 50 phone calls a week on this. This is a major issue. So it's very helpful for us to be able to have that conversation. Have your family call their legislators and let them know, because not all the legislators are on board with giving us this kind of a choice. One of the things I've done these all over the state, and one of the things I've done is ask How many of you think you're not paying enough for your insurance? I've never had a hand raised yet. How many of you think you're paying about right for the insurance that you're getting? Every now and then a few hands will go up. How many of you think you're paying too much? It's well over 95% of the audience, every place I go, that raises their hand there. We need to fix this. And I believe that this is a really good approach to do that. So did you want to go ahead and start the conversation or go into questions, or how did you want to handle this, Representative LaFave?
Can we pop the light back
Well,
on?
thank you very much
Can we pop the
for
light back on? Oh, yeah.
going through that. I know
Done with the presentation?
it is
Yes.
rather lengthy. It's a 78-page bill. There's a lot to it. We are streaming live on Facebook right now, and
Facebook friends.
so hopefully we've got some questions that you guys can ask, and then I will ask our friends in the back if they see any questions on Facebook, that they get a mic and yell those out and answer them to the best of our ability.
Sounds great. Do any of you have any questions for us? It's sitting in my insurance committee. I believe we have the votes to get it out of committee. I don't think that's a problem. I want to make sure that when we are taking a look at moving it forward further, that we've crossed all of our T's and dotted all of our I's. So I've requested that anybody that has any information that they want to change, any amendments that they want to make, that they get that to me so that we can do the research on it. I dig really deep on issues, and this is such a complicated issue that I want to make sure that we're fully vetting that information before we go ahead and change things.
Did we have any questions from Facebook Live?
Yes.
I have a neighbor that has, had, I don't know, 3 or 4 accidents every year. Wife and I haven't had an accident in 50 years. You guys say what? How does that work?
He's not hitting you every time he's getting in an accident, right?
No, he's hitting here, he doesn't slow down, and then hey, I know there's a car that's over there, so I mean, I slow down, if there's a deer, I stop. I don't know if that's a problem, but I mean, why are we paying the same rates when he has all this? Why not?
The insurers use about 80 different factors when they're going through to determine what your premium is going to be. If you haven't checked for premium with other insurers, I would recommend that. It would be unusual for you not to be able to find savings looking through someone else. And if that's what's going on, then I find it.
Well, every 30 years we go to a different company, they cheaper rate, last about 6 months, then it gets increased, next 6 months it gets increased. Go back up almost $1,000 every 6 months on the vehicle.
If you and I were talking earlier, if you're interested in going for one of the lower plans, you're going to be able to have some very real savings. But with respect to whether or not an insurer would charge someone with a bad driving record, more generally they do. So I'm afraid that's not a question that I can answer for you, but I certainly could ask your insurer.
Who's opposing this bill and why?
Well, the lawyers don't like it all that much. And one of the main reasons is Representative Theis, you brought this up. If you're getting paid, let's talk about attendant care, what that actually means. So if somebody is horribly injured in your family, you can get paid to take care of them at home. And that's a good thing. And it should save money because it's a lot cheaper than to send them to a nursing home. But so let's say you're getting $10 an hour and you get a phone call from a lawyer and says, well, you really should be getting 16. They go to court and sue. As you mentioned, they're going to get $2 every hour for the rest of that car accident victim's life. So, if I'm a lawyer, and I had 30 of those cases, and I'm getting $60 an hour doing nothing, I would probably be really angry with Representative Theis trying to take away my golden goose.
What percentage of these people are catastrophic?
Less than 2% of all the claims will ever hit the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. And it represents more than 45% of the cost. A significant portion of the MCCA, that Claims Association I was telling you about, goes to attendant care.
I think that should be put up on your graph. That's less than 1%.
We actually have, I have multiple of these presentations I've done, and we do have a graph that represents that. But you're right, it's important to note. So the reality is less than 2/10 of the accidents that happen in Michigan will make it to that this year, but we're paying significant amounts of money to be able to use that. So is that really the kind of benefit that we think? Well, some people will answer that yes. Some people think that absolutely you should pay for that and it's worth it. But other people don't think so. And it creates its own problems. Last weekend I was at a gentleman's house. His son was traumatically injured in a car accident. He was on a skateboard and a semi-truck hit him. He's concerned about this and wants to see the change because the insurance companies are fighting back because they're being overcharged for everything. And he sees that what that equates to is that his son's benefits are delayed as a result. And he says, I can't blame the insurance companies for doing this because I'm watching people mark up 200, 500, 1,000%. So of course the insurance companies don't want to pay it that high. He said he was trying to buy a pen for his son. He went online, the pen was going to be $129. It's a specialty pen because his son, like I said, is very injured. When he told the manufacturer that it was the insurance that was going to pay for it, all of a sudden that $129 pen became a $300 pen. And they wouldn't sell it to him for less than $300. He was just, that's the kind of frustration that he's dealing with. What that means is the victims that we're trying to help here are being harmed by the system too. Even the ones that have the unlimited benefit are still being harmed by the system. There was another mom that called. She works 2 jobs. She's a single mom. She has to drive to her first job, can't afford to move, but she has her second job so that she can pay for insurance so she can drive to the first job. And she has to leave her kids with a babysitter to do that. That's not the kind of position that I want to put single moms in. If there's a way that we can avoid that, I want to. So I think it's important to note that there are an awful lot of people that are being harmed by the system that would like to see it change. But Representative LaFave is right. There are a lot of people making money off the system, and if you financially benefit from the system, you don't want to see it changed.
Lana, can we talk briefly about one of the things that you brought up at the very beginning, before we ever had this bill and before we ever started fighting over how we were exactly going to do it, not you and me, we get along pretty good on this one. We were talking about the MCCA, and as a lot of us know, we pay $180 a year to the MCCA. One of the things I didn't know was that it was underfunded. The MCCA doesn't have enough money in there. Can you go and explain? I don't mind. Can you explain exactly what's going on and how this bill is going to try to fix that as well?
Well, the MCCA is it's a pool of money reserved specifically for the people who have been catastrophically injured. So the actuaries will go in and take a look and say, how much money do we have? How long is it that we're going to be paying this off for? How much are medical costs going to increase over time? What are our expected returns on investment? And how long are people generally going to live? The mortality tables extending because God bless our medical care. It's amazing, but it's extending people's lives. So that is an additional cost. It's a wonderful thing, but it is an additional cost that they have to calculate. So they're going through and making the determination as to what this is supposed to look like. We currently have pretty close to $19 billion in that fund. That sounds like an awful lot of money until you find out that what the actuaries have determined under the system the way it's currently written is that the load on this fund, what they can expect it will end up having to pay out, is around $70 billion. So what they have to do is make all of those assumptions about over time, how much money are we going to make, and will we have this to pay it off. And so it is underfunded. Right now they think they really need to have closer to $20 billion in there in order to be able to hit what it is that they see that's needed. If these changes pass, then different things about it are going to go down. So the attendant care costs are going to go down because it's going to be on a fee schedule now. There will be fewer people going into the MCCA because they will have chosen a lesser benefit, and they'll be instead receiving health care through their health care benefit instead of health care through their auto benefit. So the costs will go down for that. So we expect that that will have a beneficial impact on the MCCA.
And
I think it's important to note that that's paying out right now about $93 million a month for that less than 2% of the folks that actually ended up going into the system.
one of the other questions I heard from one of our colleagues was, well, how are we going to keep that funded if people all drop out of the MCCA? And one of the best things that I've heard, and reasons that I'm supporting the bill is, if it's still underfunded, we're still going to have to pay, whether it be $1 a year, or $2 a year, maybe $10 a year for the underfunded portion of the MCCA. But if these reforms are as good as the actuarial data shows, is that we might get a rebate check from the MCCA if everything goes through.
This bill is set up so that if the MCCA is overfunded at 120%, that you need to create a process that says in order to provide the rebate. So yep, a rebate will happen if it is in fact overfunded.
One of the things as an insurance agent and nominee and as a consumer myself, I really appreciate everything that you are doing for the program because I think I have a lot of insurers coming to me and saying we need reform. And when I've been sharing their information on my Facebook page, a lot of them are saying, you've seen this before. We've tried it before and it failed, it didn't go anywhere. Can you give myself, the others here, and those that are watching online, kind of a timeline or a progressive on how things go through the system and what is required so that maybe myself, the others here, those
For you to have your friends, have everybody call and let them know that this is what they would like to see happen. We are first and foremost representatives. We can't represent unless we've heard from the public. So the public needs to voice their opinion on this. The polls that have been done show us that about 80% of the people out there think that reform is absolutely necessary. One of the things that I saw as being urgently necessary when we were looking at reform is that everything we were addressing needed to make sure that we were actually reducing the cost, because I didn't want to turn around and you don't want to do a reform that's going to increase the cost, right? We're already paying the highest rate. So that's what I was balancing it up against as I went through to make sure that it was in fact going to decrease the cost. And that's what this is intended to do. As far as the timeline is concerned, we need to make sure that the other legislators fully understand what it is that this bill offers, and then we need to help them get on board with it. If they have some fundamental differences with it, that they think something needs to be changed, then I've asked them to come forward, and I talked about that earlier. I want them to come forward with their potential amendments so that I can review them and make a determination as to whether or not they're going to increase or decrease the cost overall in the system. Does it actually provide a benefit for the folks? So it is in process right now. It's different than it's been before because we have a wider support network. We've got people from all over the state that are interested in supporting this. Mayor Duggan has been a huge partner in this.
I'm sorry, he's the mayor of Detroit, for everyone who doesn't know that. Mayor of Detroit is sorry, we don't know. I had no idea who he was until he came in the trend.
That's fantastic. So Strange Bedfellows, when we were doing the rollout for this, we had the UAW and the NAACP and Mayor Duggan and Speaker Tom Leonard, conservative Speaker Tom Leonard, and myself, I'm also a conservative, all on the same stage together because some things are so incredibly bipartisan that they should transcend that partisan environment, and this is one of those things. It shouldn't matter what letter you have after your last name. You should want to help solve this problem for the people of Michigan.
This is state mandated. Why can't it go on a ballot?
It can. What I suspect would end up going on the ballot is an option for full tort. That's the least complicated description because this is an incredibly complicated issue. But an option for full tort could make it to the ballot, and I suspect if this doesn't pass that will be the case.
And just so if anybody has any questions on where I stand on this, I would go to full tort tomorrow. My fundamental argument and problem that I have with the system is if I'm driving along in a 55-mile-an-hour zone, going 55 miles an hour, and some jerk rear ends me at 110, I don't know why I have to pay for it. It drives me insane. So I want tort, but the reason I want tort is because of that reason. But I think the most important thing is that we save our drivers money. And if bill is going to accomplish saving a lot of money. So my ultimate goal is full tort. If you make terrible mistakes in life, you're going to pay for them like they do in every other way. But if we can save some money along the way, let's do it. And this bill is going to save a lot of money.
I agree. Any other questions? Yes, sure.
Back to my original question, after I got the answer. Right now, I know that there was a meeting that we were at 2 weeks ago, where this bill was kind of presented to the committee. A lot of people were asking me what's happened since then, because I believe there was some sort of a vote at that committee.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so there was no vote. We don't typically, raise our hands behind the doors and did do it that way. But we are working through the education process and convincing people. And I would say the bus is moving. The bus is definitely moving. I don't think it would be appropriate to put a timeline on exactly when this gets done, because I don't think we know yet. Obviously, the minute I get a phone call from the last couple people that we need before we get to 55, it's not as though Lana and I are saying, well, let's just wait until November or December. If we need our votes, we need to make sure everybody is ready to go.
So the process is that we're in committee right now. I've asked for the amendments. I suspect what the amendments, I don't know. We'll process it and vote it out of the committee. Then it goes on the House floor. On the House floor, we get that vote done. And bills can go really quickly, or they can wait for weeks. It just depends. Once it's passed off the House floor, it goes over to the Senate for the Senate committee. And it goes through the same process in the Senate. So the Senate will look at it, they'll vote it in the committee onto the Senate floor. If they make any changes from the Senate floor and vote it back to us, then we have to reconsider that in the House. If we have a disagreement, then there's another committee after that. You're welcome. Because they don't want to see their money reduced. So they are one of the providers that are receiving significant funds off this. The seniors will have a choice. There's nothing that's going to be forced on them. The seniors will have the choice as to what level of coverage they want, and they can go from there. We are mandating that the insurers provide a savings to the people who are choosing the reduced benefit. If that savings is not considered sufficient by the senior, then the senior can choose whatever level of benefit they want. They can continue to go unlimited. So it's entirely up to that person as to whether or not they think that that's worth the savings.
Well, and I think one of the other important aspects of this is they keep the hospitals, the medical providers keep saying, well, we're trying to give insurance companies a pay raise. Well, A, oh, no, we're not. But B, the insurance companies aren't exactly thrilled with this bill either. You ask the insurance company and say, hey, what do you think about a mandatory rate reduction of 40%? And they're like, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And we say, well, tough. That's exactly what we're going to make you do. So no, this is not an insurance company bailout bill. We're not Congress, certainly not the Congress of 2010. We're not trying to give a bailout for insurance companies. We're trying to do meaningful rate reductions for everybody that drives in the state of Michigan. And one of the ways we have to do that is to stop $10,000 MRIs that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan pays $750 for.
It's not just that, right? I mean, part of this bill is that programs like Medicare, Medicaid, VA would actually pay in the event of an auto accident versus the way it's set up right now where they don't pay. You have to have primary on your policy to get those bills taken care of properly the first time. And some people are putting it incorrectly because it's saving them money so that they can afford it.
She's right. We are the only state in the country that prohibits many of these other insurance from paying, health insurance options from paying, because we require unlimited medical through the auto. So they're able to make that a requirement where it doesn't happen anywhere else in the country.
So Lana, if I live in Wisconsin, I don't live in Wisconsin, I live 3 miles north of it. Just had to throw that out there. But if I live in Wisconsin and I buy $5,000 worth of medical coverage in Wisconsin, and I have health insurance or Medicare, what happens in Wisconsin if I spend more than $5,000 in medical?
Your health insurance pays for your health coverage.
And so if I buy $250,000 of medical coverage, and God forbid I need more than that, what's going to happen in Michigan?
So the way our $250,000 is set up is $225 of that is set up for emergency services. $25 is set to be a bridge to help bridge you over into your own health insurance coverage, and it's intended at that point that your health insurance would pick up. If that's not the case, if you don't feel that that's sufficient, then don't choose that particular coverage. Pick a different coverage level. But it's important that people understand that it is normal in the other 49 states for health insurance to pay for this health coverage.
It's fascinating that health insurance would pay for medical stuff. I'm sorry, I'm being facetious here, but it's crazy. I just thank you, Lana. Are there any other questions we have before we wrap up? One more.
Another Facebook question from Walt Eddington. Said if this bill can get passed, how can we get it on the ballot?
There's a process for ballot questions. There's absolutely a process, but I want to say that I'm extremely hopeful that we'll be able to do that. So have him contact the office if he has a question for whether or not, what the timing is on this. I guess I should say a little bit more, just so that we can give people the opportunity to fully understand what this bill is about, so that they can be as supportive as I am, because I want to make sure that our folks have a choice when they are choosing their insurance.
And to put it into perspective, it is rather difficult to get things on the ballot. It would literally take every single user to sign a petition, and it would be like a 90-day process. It's a nightmare. It is much quicker to just do the right thing and get this bill out of the insurance committee, go through the Michigan House of Representatives, over to the Senate and signed by Governor Snyder. It would be a lot easier.
I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to get this done.
One thing you said was that there's a lot of groups that don't want this. But there's a lot of companies like myself that represent farmers insurance that do want this. Because, yes, we understand that it's reducing premiums, and yes, it's going to reduce what we bring in as well. But we're trying to do this, and we want to see this through, because we are trying to help. We know what everybody's going through with their insurance. We understand what you're paying. We live in the communities we do. I live in Michigan. I have for almost 20 years. Michigan is the most difficult state when it comes to the auto insurance, because it is unlimited. Because it doesn't matter if you're in your car driving down the street and you get hit by a car, or your child is on their skateboard or their bike, or you're a couple that wants to walk it. If you get hit by your car, or by a car, or motorized vehicle right now, it goes back on your auto policy, and it's unlimited. There's no cap, so it doesn't matter, as long as it involves a vehicle, it's your auto policy paying, and that causes such a premium for people that they can't afford it. So we need people to step up, like you have Ms. LaFave and Ms. Theis, to get these things through, and we as a company are supporting, along with some of the others. We've talked to a few different ones. We want to see this go through. It's not, it's not every insurance company that doesn't want this. There are a lot of really good ones, like the one I represent, that do want to see these positive changes. And if we have to put it through everybody, you can't get a vote. I know there's a lot of people that would be right there to sign that paper. So hopefully we can do the channel we're doing with all the work you've already started and get this.
Thank you. I'm excited about the opportunity. I don't think we've ever had an opportunity quite like this, and I've been frustrated in Michigan since I've been back. Every time I go to write that premium check, it's extremely difficult. Insurers are paying right now for aromatherapy and equine therapy. When you write a blank check, they end up having to pay for things that really I think make no sense whatsoever. So we need to get the system fixed, and so that we can save money for everybody. And they're going to have a choice. If they want unlimited, they can still have it, but people should have a choice.
At the risk of letting Upers know another great benefit of this ridiculous no-fault, people are getting vacations, and well, not vacations, I guess they're not called, but in Florida, the cold bad on their joints after these accidents.
I'm not familiar with that one.
But yeah, I mean, the amount of things that go on with this is just ridiculous. They have to get something done.
So call your representatives, tell them we need change. Help us to get 5013 passed, HB 5013. Thank you.
Thank you.